Hey guys, it is Isaac with a brand new video today, and we're back for another election prediction. I'm sorry I didn't upload a video yesterday. I was busy and I had some family stuff going on, and yeah. So I'm back today. We have a Donald Trump versus Elizabeth Warren election prediction, and I think this one is gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be guess more similar to what you had with Bernie Sanders because they're both kind of progressive candidates. Now, obviously, you can make a good case that Bernie Sanders, throughout his career, has been a lot more progressive than Elizabeth Warren and has had a lot more experience. But I think in terms of appeal and the type of voters they appeal to, they're going to be pretty similar. So let's just get started. So we're going to just start here. We'll just start from the Midwest with states we know I think Trump will do well in. So we know he'll do good in Texas, Oklahoma, Texas. I put as a likely. I think her broadband in terms of people she reaches to, not the type of voters in Texas. Even Texas Democrats, they don't really come off. They don't even give. They don't really give off the type of scent of being progressive or a Democrat or like a very left leaning Democrat. They give more of a sense of being like an Obama Democrat. The type of voters that are going to be attracted to someone like Joe Biden or attracted to a candidate like Kamala Harris that can make Texas a little bit closer. Now, the only place you can say that's an exception to that is maybe somewhere like Austin that's extremely liberal and is very progressive. But other than that, even blue counties in Texas like Harris County or Dallas County that are in the urban areas, even they're more old school Democrats. Obama, Biden, Clinton, Jimmy Carter, even going back to Jimmy Carter. So I don't think she does well in Texas. Even Oklahoma, I know she was born there, but Oklahoma is a deep red state. It is a state in 2016 where Trump had the widest margin of victory, I believe. He had somewhere around 72% of the vote. So I know she was born there, but this is just a deep red state, and I don't see her even getting close in it. Same thing with all the the normal, your Tornado Alley states. Trump will do fine in. Same thing with Wyoming, Utah. Utah, I think of the Howard Schultz candidate, it could be a little bit closer, but either way, you had Edward McMullen running last time, and Trump still won by 10 points. So, and that was with Edward McMullen, the independent in Utah, still getting like 21% of the vote. So that's saying something. And I still have Trump winning Arizona. I think the voters are similar to Texas in terms of the type of Democrats they appeal to, or even independent voters they appeal to. And I know some people, more progressive people, in the last couple of years have moved from states like California and Washington and Oregon. But I don't see someone flipping it in this election. I think I can see someone flip. I think Arizona is going to be a completely purple state in 2024. That's my personal prediction. The same way we put Florida or Pennsylvania or North Carolina as a swing state. I think by 2024 it will no longer be a Republican state, or at least it leans red. So that's the case with Florida. And then we know that what else will be red? We know that most of the South, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, even Indiana. I'll keep it more as a likely. Indiana was a little bit closer with Obama. And I think that's more of a rural working class area. And I know it leans more red. And that's why I'm putting it as a likely, but I think it will be not as wide of a margin of victory as a West Virginia or Kentucky would be. So that's how I would label those states. And then going into blue states, we know Washington, Oregon, California. I'm not putting Nevada as a toss-up. I think Nevada has moved a lot more blue since the last election. Not only did Hillary Clinton win there, and I know it was not by a lot, it was a very small margin, hence it being a swing state. But she won by an okay amount, and I think I really looked to the 2018 midterms and how Nevada was. 2018 we know it was a Democratic wave year in the House of Representatives, not in the Senate. The Republicans not only held on to most of their seats in the Senate, but they added on to it. But when you look at Nevada, Jackie Rosen won the Senate race over there against Dean Heller, the incumbent. He was expected to re-win his election. The only other state that we saw something similar to that was Arizona with Kyrsten Sinema and Martha McSally, where Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat, won. And then you're going to say, Isaac, well, why don't you use that same logic with Arizona? Well, I'll tell you the big difference, because I know people will go in the comments and talk about that. You can't, they did the same thing. Kyrsten Sinema ran on a lot more moderate, very almost centrist policy in campaigning style for what stuff she was going to promote as a senator from Arizona, compared to Jackie Rosen, who's actually from California, and she's a kind of nose hard average liberal out of the state of California. She won against Dean Heller, who was the incumbent. Again, compared to a Kristen Sinema, that you can see past videos from her that she sounds a lot more progressive, but that's not the way she ran her campaign or presented herself or the policies she was going to support. And again, Elizabeth Warren, a progressive candidate, not the same base of voters or independents or moderate Republican voters that Kristen Sinema got. Completely different base. So that's why I'm not. There's a difference between the logic I'm using in Arizona and Nevada. Jackie Rosen won the Senate over there good, and I think that Elizabeth Warren, almost said Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren will do good in the state of Nevada, as well as I think she'll be likely in Colorado. Colorado is a pretty progressive state, and it's been Democrat for a while now, since Obama, pretty much. The last person to win it was George W. Bush. And going to New Mexico, I think Elizabeth Warren does well with minorities, and I think she'll do well in New Mexico as a likely. A lot of other predictions I've had it as a toss-up, or even a more of a leans to the Democratic candidate, but I think it's likely. So I'm going to keep that way. In Illinois, that I know will be a safe state for her. In Minnesota, I'm not going to keep as a toss-up this election. Amy Klobuchar's election in there, as well as Tina Smith holding the seat. It kind of gives an example of another senator that is doing well and is popular in the state. In Minnesota, Trump's approval rating there is terrible. I don't see him winning in there. He lost by 1 point in 2016, but 2016 was 2 years ago, close to 2.5 years ago in a few months, and a lot has changed in Minnesota, especially the perception of Trump. So I'm gonna keep Minnesota. I think it's gonna be a little bit closer still because of rural voters Trump gets, but I think Elizabeth Warren will pick off a lot of those voters, and it will help her win the state. And then we go into Wisconsin and Michigan. I'm gonna leave those as toss-ups for now. And then going into the Northeast, we know most of the Northeast, excluding New Hampshire and Maine, will go solid Democrat. So we're gonna just add that there. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Delaware, Maryland, all safe Democratic states, as well as New York. And then we get left with these states: Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia, as well as Maine and New Hampshire. And D.C., I forgot to put D.C. as a solid red state, or a solid blue state. Never votes Republican or ever has. So I think we're going to start from the South here. I think Trump will win Georgia. As I've always said, 2 Trump-backed candidates, one in 2016. And I think he remains, from what I've noticed, somewhat popular here. I live in Florida. I've been all over the state and not traveling to figure out what Trump's approval rating is. And I'm just going to add Alaska and Hawaii as one of them safe Republican, the other safe Democrat. I forgot to add that. But anyways, I've been to northern Florida, where Jacksonville and other parts in like Lake City that are more rural, and he's obviously very popular over there. That's where a lot of his base comes from. I've been down to Tampa before, close to Clearwater, and even over there he does pretty well. And I've seen a lot of Trump stickers and Trump flags all over the place. And then I've been even down in South Florida, close to Naples on the West Coast. He remains fairly popular in Orlando as well. And then the only 2 places that I've been to that he's not popular at all is Miami and Miami-Dade County and Broward, Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale, that whole southeast Florida. It's a liberal bubble of Florida, pretty much, where most of the liberal votes and Democratic votes come from. That's the only place that I know for a fact that Trump is very unpopular. But throughout the rest of Florida, he's remained fairly popular, compared to a state like Texas, where his approval rating is barely positive. And it's not just looking at approval rating, it's looking at attitude toward Trump in the state. It's not the same as it was in 2016. In Florida, I think it's even increased, and that's showed by his Trump-backed candidates winning. And Texas is a very red state compared to Florida, not in a scheme of things. And Ted Cruz only won by 3 points, backed by Trump. Again, in what's considered Texas should be a pretty red state. And to show, like, Greg Abbott won by double digits. Trump won by 9.5 points. So it's like, and Ted Cruz only won by 3. I think a lot has changed since 2016 in terms of Trump-backed candidates in the state. So that's what I put Florida going for Trump. Trump back candidate to win, and I think it stays that way. And it's going to be close, of course. I think a margin of 2 to 3 points. But I think he takes the state, and that's going to be the same with Georgia. I think he wins Georgia by a decent margin. And yeah. And then going into North Carolina, I think he wins it as well. Romney won it in 2012. Trump won it in 2016. And I think he will continue to carry it. Again, he's not super popular in the state, but it's nothing terrible to the point that he can't recover. Or I know, like with Trump, people don't notice this. When he has a negative approval rating somewhere, once he starts campaigning there, he gets his popularity back. It's really weird. He starts getting his approval rating back up. He starts getting more enthusiasm in the state and getting people excited about voting for him and his back candidates. So I think once he starts campaigning in North Carolina, Georgia, he'll do well in these states. And yeah, again, I think it'll still be close, but I think he'll win. In Virginia, I'm going to give that to Elizabeth Warren. Even with the Ralph Northam scandal, I think she'll do good here. She'll win enough, probably around 3 to 5 points. It'll be close, just like it was in 2016, which was around 4. But I think Elizabeth Warren will ultimately win in Virginia. Then going up to Iowa, Trump will win here. He won by 9 points in 2016. And I know Elizabeth Warren will do better with rural farming communities, especially when it comes to things like unions and workers' protections overall, which is kind of that old school Democratic piece of support that I think she can tap into. And then New Hampshire, let me just finish the Northeast out. I think she'll win New Hampshire by as a likely. I mean, it's close to Massachusetts. She's a Northeastern Democrat. Kind of this mixed, progressive, a little bit of, not corporatism, but the style is the kind of the style of old school Democrats, I guess you could say. In Maine, I think she'll win the first like 2 districts in Maine. So she'll win one of them as a likely. And then Trump will take rural Maine in the back, which doesn't make sense. So that's how I leave Maine. Maine at large, and Maine's first district will go to Elizabeth Warren. Maine second, which is much more in the back. A lot more rural, farmer, stuff like that. I think I can put it as a little bit closer, but I think Trump will win that. He has a good base over there. Then Pennsylvania, I'm going to give that to Elizabeth Warren. I think she's 100% going to be able to really get back the state. When I had Kamala Harris going against Trump and Joe Biden, I didn't give them Pennsylvania because I didn't feel like corporate Democrats that get big money from PACs and stuff like that and almost sound like robots. You know, not like, no offense to them, but I'm talking about, think about it from a perspective of voters in that region. Because other than Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and maybe Harrisburg, the capital, that vote, that are urban, that have high minority populations that will vote for candidates like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the rest of the state is very rural. It's very rural. And they are going to vote, and they're going to look, why am I going to vote for someone like that? We voted for Trump in 2016, and many of them, maybe Trump doesn't have a very good approval rating in the state, but a lot of people didn't vote for Trump in that state because they felt he was going to destroy the country. And once they realized it's been 4 years and they're still alive, and maybe they feel they're in a little better situation or the same situation, and they feel Trump is more in touch with his message than someone else's, you know, I think they'll vote for Trump versus a corporate Democrat compared to an Elizabeth Warren that really can connect with these voters, coming to the same thing as like Virginia and rural Virginia or other parts of the Rust Belt, where I think she really is going to do good with factory workers and other people like that, these run-of-the-mill cities that are going to really go to someone like Elizabeth Warren that can bring this progressive, populist left message compared to Trump's populist right that they might be dissatisfied with. So that's why I'm giving Elizabeth Warren the state of Pennsylvania. Going into Ohio, I think Trump will still win it. Other than Sherrod Brown, other Trump candidates did pretty good. In Ohio, Trump, Republicans did decently well in the House and state races. It wasn't perfect, but I think it's enough for them to hold on in 2020. Trump still won by a decent margin over here, and I think his base of support still stays pretty strong in the state. Going into Michigan, I'm going to give this to Elizabeth Warren for the same exact reason I gave for Pennsylvania. And especially in places like Detroit. Even going into like Grand Rapids that voted for Trump in 2016, the counties in there, I think will flip for Elizabeth Warren in 2020. I think she'll do incredibly well in Michigan. And I think she'll win Wisconsin. I think she'll win Wisconsin as well. suburban woman outside of places like Milwaukee and Green Bay, I think will flock to someone like Elizabeth Warren, especially the independent voters and very moderate Republicans that might not really like Trump and might see a woman compared to Hillary, and instead of being like, well, Hillary Clinton was a woman too. Why didn't they vote for her and Trump? Well, Hillary Clinton, first, A, was way more unpopular. B, already had a bad reputation, not in terms of popularity of approval rating, but throughout the past, whether the information is true or false, people already had a preconceived notion of Hillary Clinton, regardless of what gender group they were part of or identified with. Compared to Elizabeth Warren, who, other than her Native American thing that went on with Trump, I think she was not very. People don't really think very negatively about her. She's fought against big banks and big pharma her whole career, and has a pretty good track record, other than a few small things. And I think those voters will see that and want to vote for her, compared to someone like Trump, who has, whether you like him or not, a lot of controversy surrounds him. So that would hand Elizabeth Warren the election. A lot of people don't believe she could win. I just think that she'll do good in the Rust Belt, which will give her the race electorally. Popular vote should probably be expected to win, but you can make a case that Trump can win that as well and lose the Electoral College, kind of flip from 2016. But bottom line is, that's going to be the video, guys. The final electoral count is 278 to 260. Very similar to how I had Bernie Sanders lay out, but it makes sense for the same appeal of voters. And that's going to be actually all the election prediction videos for general elections. I'm going to start doing tomorrow primaries. Primary matchups. Probably tomorrow will be Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Then I'll do Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders versus an Elizabeth Warren or O'Rourke and kind of mix it up and do cool videos on that. So that's going to be it, guys. Thank you for watching. This has been Isaac, and I'll see you guys in the next video.